Welcome to the Jerry Bovino Show. And now, here's Jerry.
Jerry Bovino, we're back with 3 superstar interior designers here to give us their take on what's hot, what's not, what you need to know about hiring an interior designer, what you need to know about interfacing with them, and why you can have fun designing and decorating your home. We've got Cheryl Tague, Bachelorette number 1. Cheryl, welcome to the show. I called her the French limestone girl, and you're going to hear this story. You will not believe it. Bachelorette number 2, Lynn Hutton, who needs no introduction to Aspen. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And our eye candy for the day, Jeff Halferty, the well-known man about town, skilled architect and interior designer. Jeff, we're happy to have you on the show. And Jeff, I should give credit to his beautiful wife, Sarah, who's been my co-host over the years and is just a wonderful girl. And Jeff has 4 beautiful kids. So, Jeff, just give our viewers a little frame of reference about how you got to Aspen and what your background is.
I came here for a long weekend ski trip.
And he's still here.
And I'm still here. So this was in 1993. I was practicing in Philadelphia and came out here and saw a bunch of ads for architects, interior designers, and called one of them up, and they said, "Are you skiing Snowmass tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And the guy said, "Why don't you ski down to our office? We're ski on, ski off." So it was a fantastic revelation, and I moved back 3 months later, and I've been here ever since.
Good. You never got out of here. So you're an interior designer. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but you're not gay, which is sort of a...
True.
It's an interesting... because we've had great interior designers who are men over the years, but most of them were gay. So, like, how do you fit into that?
Well, I'm happily married with 4 kids, and I don't think that's a job prerequisite, but maybe in some towns.
It's definitely not.
No, and gender is gender.
Right, it's irrelevant.
People. Exactly.
Let's move over to Lynn Hutton. Lynn, you've been in the design game for a long time, been in Aspen for a long time. Give our viewers some of your background.
Well, I had my own firm in Los Angeles for almost 20 years before I moved here. I moved here in 1995, and I almost moved over to Vail, but thank God I didn't.
Friends don't let friends ski
That's
Vail,
right.
Lynn.
That's right. Well, my dad and my brother, my dad was an architect and my brother was in real estate, and they were over in Vail, and I was going to open office over there, just a satellite office. But it wasn't horse country over there, and I figured
You're
if
a
I
horsey
was
person.
horsey person, so I figured if I was making a move, I had to move into a horse community, which Aspen is, and I wound up moving here instead.
Does that horsey connection get you business in interior design?
Sometimes.
Do you promise to put like a picture of secretariat in their house, or what do you do?
Actually, it does, because I meet a lot of people in the horse world that need design work.
And to
so
be candid, you need at least a few dollars to hire an interior designer.
You do.
And to be in the horse world, you generally can't be poor. So
Correct.
it's a nice little
Right.
connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
And
great.
now we have Cheryl. Cheryl, give us your background.
Okay, I'm Cheryl Tague. My company is Core Home Collaborative. I'm an interior designer, but I was a banker, and I was a CPA, and I was a tax consultant in my former lives. I came to Aspen because my mother was here working for the Aspen Institute. So we came for the summer, my husband and I. We came for 2 weeks, and then we started looking at real estate after day 3. I think it was the hike up American Lake, and then having a nice lunch up there. What's the restaurant?
Pine Creek Cookhouse.
Oh, Pine Creek.
Someone said, "Oh, you should go and just have lunch there." And there we were in our like sweaty clothes, and we went in, and I had the best Caesar salad ever. And I said, "Okay, I can live here. This is a pretty cool place."
Yeah, well, we all sort of reacted the same way. And you're married to Peter, the devilishly handsome banker. 2 bankers becoming an interior designer.
Well, we worked together.
Someone's got to pay for that limestone.
Yeah.
It's not easy to transport it back here. Here's what we're going to do. We really got some great stories for you about interior design today. I'd like to take a short break first to recognize the underwriters who very generously support us here at Grassroots Television. U.S. Trust, the premier name in private wealth management. The Bovino law firm, David Bovino and Summer Woodson Berg, who practice right here in town, and say hello to them if you see them on the street. And last but not least, Bishop Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to tell you the worst mistakes someone can make with an interior designer. We're coming right back.
Support for this grassroots community television program comes from U.S. Trust. From wealth structuring to investment management, U.S. Trust's global perspective, unique team approach, fiduciary platform, and more than 200 years of experience provide for the kind of insights, solutions, and expertise that have a worth all their own.
Bovino Law Firm, a boutique law firm specializing in complex litigation, real estate, leasing, and sales, corporate organization, trust, and estates. Admitted in Colorado, California, and New York. David Bovino and Summer Woodson at 970-925-4445 or www.bovinolaw.com.
Bishop Plumbing and Air Conditioning, serving Aspen and Vail for over 40 years. Shoe covers, name tags, IDs. Let Bishop worry about your heating, plumbing, and air conditioning issues so that you don't have to. Bishop Plumbing and Air Conditioning, 925-8610.
Jerry Bovino, we're back with our three superstar designers, Cheryl Tague, who's our French limestone girl, Lynn Hutton, who needs no introduction in Aspen. She's a horsey person, and our movie star handsome designer who's not gay, Jeff Halferty. And I love his wife, by the way. Sarah, if you're watching, you know we love you. So let's just start out and talk a little bit about interior design, Jeff. Is interior design something that can be taught, or because I know people, let me give you a frame of reference. I know a friend in New York named Fern Malice. She's involved in, she did interior design, she does clothing, she worked at Mademoiselle. She's a very famous design person. She had a knack from when we were in college. She'd throw a little thing around and she'd put a little chair in her corner. It was perfect. Is that something that's born or something that we can teach to people?
I think it's a combination of both. I think you need the fundamentals skill set first. You have to have the fundamentals of drafting and style, and then you have to be able to listen. In order to be a good designer, no matter, and you guys deal with this all the time, you have to be able to listen. So practice, schooling, education, experience, client interaction, communication, all of those things are key. And a fiscal awareness, believe it or not. Most clients do have an eye on their money, and it's not an open-ended thing.
Except for Lenny over here.
Sometimes.
I have an eye on their money.
What do you think, Lenny? Did you always have a talent for putting things together, or is this something that you learned in school, or how did you learn it?
I agree with Jeff. Both. I don't think you can teach style.
You can't teach artistic.
You can't teach it. That's my predicate.
You can't teach style. Some people
have it,
definitely,
and some don't.
They have a flair, and it's like you said, it doesn't matter what they put on, doesn't matter how they arrange an interior, they just have a way. But the important thing that you do learn, and you learn it through not only your schooling but experience working in the field, is proportion. And I think proportion is like the most important thing in architecture and design. You know, you can look at your floor plan this way, but if you can't see what the big picture is three-dimensionally and how things are going to wind up, you can't design. You can't do architecture. You have to be able to see it all, make it happen.
I think there's a 3D intelligence that people can have, or they don't have it.
Right.
You can say, look, can you imagine this? And like my mother would say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then other people can work through they have a three-dimensional intelligence. And you also have to have an artistic style. Because I mean, I've gone to school for design, and people you can teach them how to draft, you can teach them all the technical skills, but you can't teach them to be creative, you can't teach them to actually create something of beauty. They just can't do it.
Well, some people foster that. If you have really good professors, they'll foster that. You know, if they see a glimmer, sometimes we're constrained in school. You know, you know,
Because they're
in this
teaching
little
you the
box.
traditional one,
Right.
2, 3, 4 within the lines, which
Right.
may not be where design is going.
Correct.
Right.
And you have to, like
That's
Lenny
right.
was talking, you have to be
Right.
able to think out of the box, whether you're
Right.
in school or whether you're in
Right.
the field practicing.
Right.
You have to be able to think outside the box. And
Yeah.
that expression is used all the time.
But it's true.
It's extremely true, whether it's a material usage, a usage of
Right.
space or water or
Right.
fire, however you design, whatever you're talking about,
Right.
architectural form, all of
Yeah.
those things, and
Yeah.
fabric colors and pieces and color. So
Even though interior design is constantly evolving and some things become trendy and some things become out, Cheryl, are there timeless concepts that last from generation to generation?
Yeah, that would be proportion.
Proportion.
Classical proportioning.
Right.
good
On
point.
how you scale things in a room.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's modernist, if it's antique, if it's
Right.
you see the good modern design goes back to Beaux-Arts training, goes back to classical training, and you need that, and you have to have that eye to do that.
And the truth of it is, the three of you probably had it when you were 4 years old, is my guess. And I know I don't have it. When I talk to the interior designer, it's like it goes, and that's why. And here's an interesting question. So I read once that when you start an interior design project, okay, you are going to spend some money on this because it's costly, and people are desperately afraid of making mistakes. So they become, at some point, dependent on their designer to help them. But do you find that people become so dependent on you that they're afraid to make any decision?
I think at the beginning they're afraid to trust you, and then in a relationship, I don't know if this is
So true.
the cycle you see. By the end of the project, they're so elated that they can't do anything without you, because then they get very dependent on you.
Because they know
And
that you're going to
they
give them the
trust you.
product
And so
they
they go to
want.
the next house, or they go to the next project, or the next room, or whatever it is, and they know that you will perform and you'll give them what
Right.
they
What they
they're-
like.
what they like, and
What they
you're-
like. But here's a question for you, Linny. So I come in and I say, you know, I love this contemporary style. That's what I want. And my wife is over there. She's going to want a Victorian, okay, with like heavy velvet furniture or something. And then you get in the middle as a psychologist, as an
That's
interior
right.
designer.
That
Explain to
is
us
right.
how you handle that. How do you guide them gently to where, not just where you think they
Right.
should be, but where they're going to be happy ultimately?
Well, usually what I do is sort of when you meet a couple, you can assess after talking to them for a while. One can live in the other's world, the other can't live in this world.
Good point.
And you have to see who's going to give.
There's always one
where
who's
it's
a
gonna
little
be.
less flexible. Is that fair?
Right. Some people are very comfortable in square space. Very square, very symmetrical. It's just how they are. And the other can be very free and very creative and like some amorphous, shapes, things like that. But if they're married already anyway, somehow they've learned to cohabitate.
Right. So you just have to keep
Because
them on track.
something happened there. Somebody compromised. And that's where you have to go. And you have to be honest about it. You have to bring it up
Yeah.
and acknowledge it and see, who you're going to be dealing with.
Jeff, I want to hear how you deal with this, because I know when my wife and I have hired interior designers over the years, we have both very, very strong personalities. But the flip side is we know we don't know anything. So we tell the interior designer when we start, say, look, we have strong personalities, but when we're wrong, we want you to tell us you're wrong and put your foot down. Talk about that phenomenon.
I think what Lenny just said is absolutely correct. You also need to be a little bit of a marriage counselor sometimes as well. I have a particular client, I won't mention any names, that we're going through right now, and we're doing a Vanishing Edge hot tub pool and beautiful spa, and it's just a gorgeous hardscape out the back of a gorgeous home up in the mountains somewhere. And and when we speak about it, we talk costs with the husband, and the wife says, Mister, I would like to proceed. Let's do it this way. And a lot of times I have to say the wife has the influence. So stylistic, we may be in the right ballpark, but then when it comes down to dollars, he pulls me aside, the husband, and says, okay, what's this going to cost me? And then it's our job to kind of facilitate the documents, the drawings, the specs in order to get a price. But the wives normally win, at least.
Wives. Cheryl, what's your experience? Who do you think, and I know you've dealt with people over the years, who do you think makes the decision in the end? Is it the husband or the wife? Assuming it's a married couple.
It's usually the wife.
The wife.
But the husband comes around and kind of supports.
Correct.
You've got to, the wife has the vision or the idea of what she really wants, and you've got to get the husband on board from a more rational perspective, from the dollars perspective, to get what they both want together. I mean, it has to be the dollars, it has to be the creative, it has to give. It's a difficult.
It's a process.
The best is to have bachelors as clients.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's a great question. First of all,
or before the girlfriend shows up, or
Right.
oh yeah, he's got a girlfriend. We got to get.
because then you don't have two people to deal with. But in that example, would you rather deal with a man or a woman if they're single? Is one easier? I mean, you deal with both all the time.
I think it just depends on the person.
It depends on the person. What do you think, Jeff?
Depends
I
on the
think
person.
it's easy. I like dinks, double income, no kids a lot of times.
Right, exactly.
That seems to work. But no, I mean, either whoever I'm working for, I'm giving them the same service, or her the same service. And, you know, you just want a client that's rational, that understands the process, that understands communication.
And that's fun.
And that's fun. It
And
should
that's
be.
fun.
Because it's
Gotta be
hard
fun.
work.
It should be a fun
It
process.
should be
It's
fun.
also a process of educating the client.
Right.
More
The
times than
largest
not,
part,
it's-
I think.
When you're trying to get over the budget,
Yeah.
they have to understand why it costs so much and what
Right.
they're getting for that, and the
Right.
value,
Right.
and the long-lasting value
True.
that you create.
Right.
True.
Which
Right.
or the property appreciation,
Right.
or
I
and,
agree.
Great
and,
point.
and they don't understand how much things cost and what is quality and what's not, because they don't have an eye. They can look at a crummy Bombay chest that you could buy at a sidewalk auction, or a really beautiful French piece, and then you've got to tell them this is why this costs more than this one, and educate their eye, and that's part of the process, and that's part of the trust that you build with them, because you're teaching them.
And so in this example, Lenny, if you have this, more beautiful, ornate, intricate, handmade Bombay chest,
Right.
you have a way of explaining to them why
Why.
they're getting their money's worth.
Right. I do. And also, there's two different types of clients, too. Some don't want to be involved. Some want you to just go do your job. They're busy with their career. They're
And
busy
they say,
with their
"You just
family.
do it."
This is what we want. Go
Do
take
you
care of
prefer
that.
that? Because
No.
ultimately,
No.
here's an observation.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my
No.
questions in preparation. Ultimately,
Yeah.
your job is easiest if someone says, "Oh, I'm so busy, I'm going to Cap d'Antibes this week. Just to decorate my condo, I'll be back and make it look nice." But then it's your condo, it's not theirs.
You're right.
Jeff, talk about
I
that.
totally agree. You have to
Right.
have a dialogue, like Lenny's
All the
saying,
time.
all the time with your client. Even if they are hands-off, you have a hands-off client and a hands-on. And it's really, really important to interview them, understand them, their likes, their dislikes, and to really have an idea of their budget, what style. All of those things are very important, because if what's partial to me or Lenny,
Right.
or to, any of us may not be partial to your client, you're not really giving them great service. So I think in the end, you want a collaborative effort that is coherent, it's perfectly communicated, and it's just
It's
turns
better,
out perfect.
Cheryl,
Something
to have
that they're-
someone.
and that they're proud of in the end, because they really
Right.
understand what they've gotten.
Right.
Let me give you an example. I like to write. I don't have any talent in interior design or art or music, but I love to write. And when I write something, I think I work on every word till it's perfect, okay? And then I send it to the editors where it's going to be published, and they'll suggest changing like 12 sentences. I say, no, you wouldn't change the smile on Mona Lisa. That's perfect. How often do you do a room that's perfect for someone, and then they want to bring in their grandma's chartreuse chair and that doesn't fit?
Right.
And how do you deal with that, Cheryl?
Well, first of all, I think a room, a place that you live, always evolves. I mean, you're taking paintings in, they're going out, you're moving furniture, you're saying this doesn't work here anymore, let's bring it up to the bedroom. I mean, I don't think interior design is a static. I don't think you make a perfect room and then
agree.
there it is. I think it keeps evolving, or you bring something home that you like. So you've got to find a place for it. Hopefully you've educated them well enough, and then they understand. You can have a dialogue about a piece that really just is a sore thumb in the room.
And they bring it in, not you.
But yeah.
You've seen it. You're laughing. You've got a story for us, Linny. Go ahead, Linny. Tell us your story.
I can't tell it.
Yes, you can. Just don't use any names.
Oh, no.
You're laughing. I really want to hear this story.
No, I mean, it's just a little story. But it's
Go ahead.
very, very contemporary house, very large, everything very contemporary, beautiful art, great. And the people move in, and here comes the rocker. The rocker that has to go
Grandma's
into
rocker.
Grandma's rocker that has to go, that I never knew anything about, has to go everywhere in every house they're on. So right now it's in the housekeeper's room. That's where the rocker is. Sorry.
If they want to go visit it, we have a rocker like that
The
we've
rocker.
carried with us from every house.
That's
It
it.
doesn't fit in any house
No,
anymore.
no,
But it's
but it-
very
but
important. Jeff, have you
there's
seen
sentimental
this phenomenon?
For sure. People have their
Sentimental
sentimental
pieces.
values, their pieces,
So.
and they want to bring it from where Southern California to Aspen to their place in Hawaii. And sometimes we can reupholster them, sometimes we can refinish them, but we don't want to offend the client.
Usually the scale is wrong. when
Correct.
They bring it in. They'll,
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have this huge barn, and they have this tiny little cabinet, and they want to bring the little cabinet into the big barn. And you're like, okay, the entry hall it'd be perfect right here, because
Right.
when there's a lower ceiling, a little niche
Right.
someplace else. So it's a matter of convincing them that it needs to go somewhere else. Is that
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the chemistry between the designer, the architect, and the builder. Because that's the first question for you, Cheryl. When should you be brought into the process? Some people, they have their architect, their builder, and the house is already 3/4 done, and then they call a designer. That leads to what I call Frank Lloyd wrong.
Yes.
Well, this is a perfect question for you, because you bring me in at the beginning, because I design, I build, and then I'll furnish. So I'm not a designer that I don't like just decorating a room. I actually like to create the space that everything's going to go into. So I've become a contractor, I've become an architect. I like to create the space. I like to find the property, decide what kind of house should go on that property, how it fits into a neighborhood, how it fits into the landscape, how you can use the interior to the exterior, the garden rooms, the doors going out to the garden, how you're going to use the whole property.
I'm going to hire Cheryl.
Yeah, me too. She sounds like a lot of fun.
You actually enunciated that perfectly. It's a global thing. In medicine, which is my frame of reference, so many specialists, they look at the patient's gallbladder or their ear, and they don't realize it's attached to a patient. And now we're trying to teach medical students to be more global and holistic in their approach to the patient. This is the same thing. It's a whole deal. It's not just getting that chair.
Right.
Linny, you obviously are nodding your head, so you agree with this
I
phenomenon.
I do.
And you want to be brought in at the very beginning.
Always. Day
Jeff,
one.
very beginning.
Absolutely.
How often
Absolutely.
do they call you after the house is mostly done or done?
Not too
Not
often.
you, because but
Not too
you've
often.
seen
You
it,
know,
right?
in my earlier years in your career, they would say do the architecture and then help out with the interiors later on. But like these ladies are saying, it's a very integrated process with the client. You have to, from the day one, from the concept sketches and program writing, you have to interview your client the way they interview you. And I really think that's an important.
Talk about the interview process, Jeff. Now, I would imagine that most people who hire an interior designer interview a few people before. Not everybody. If the wife is going to meet you, she's going to say, hire that guy.
It's too sweet.
I don't stand a chance.
You're right.
Too flattering. Too flattering.
Exactly.
too flat.
But if the guy is going to meet one of you, say, forget
Correct.
it.
I'm out. I'm out.
So talk about the interview process. What should they be asking you at the time they're talking about engaging you?
I think the most important part is your availability, creativity, flexibility. I think those three words, and of course having skill set, design sense, and experience. So those would be and the ability to communicate, as I've continued to say, is so important. If you can't communicate an idea to them, or they can't communicate to you what they're trying to do, it's really a tough process. So
What do you think, Lenny?
I think, we're small companies.
First of all, I just want to interrupt. That's what I like about the three of you.
Right.
It's not like you
That's right.
hire the big guy and then
That's
you
right.
never see him. You're dealing
Never
with the
see them.
fourth designer from the left of your ear
Right.
that you never get to talk
Yeah.
with the guy you hired. Each one
Right.
gets you.
correct.
Right. And that is very important. I mean, I charge a lot of money, but people, when they hire me, they get me. And I'm there. I'm on their job. I'm doing their work, even though I have an assistant or another draftsperson or something. I'm the one that's actually doing the work. And
Which
that's what they want.
Most people want that.
That's
Do you
what
find
they
that,
want.
Cheryl?
Yeah, yeah.
They
You
don't
don't
wanna
just
be
farm it
passed
out to
along.
somebody.
No.
No, I can't, yeah.
No.
I don't have that staff, and
No.
it's the creative process that we're
Yeah.
involved in.
And I don't want it.
the psychology.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't want. I like
That's
what
what's
I
fun.
do.
Yeah.
I don't want to
like-
be an administrator.
Do you embrace the challenges of dealing with the client? Because
I think it's really fun. I remember when I started on my own because I was a banker beforehand, and I was too old to go work for somebody. So I set up shop, and I started getting clients. And I remember my first client picking out a scheme for their place, doing the interior design. And then I got another client, and it was completely different. And I'm like, well, what is my style? Because this is theirs, and this one is, for some reason, I'm doing this for them. And then I realized the psychology and the reading of a client and what it's all about in terms of giving them something that's good design, but giving it to them packaged for them. And I was amazed to see the difference between my two
Right.
products for two different
from the same designer.
for me. Yeah.
Right.
And don't you think, Lenny, that a designer's, like one of the things I always admire about the Beatles, as an example, their work was always evolving. It wasn't,
Right.
if you look at certain
Right.
actors, this, in my
Right.
preparation, I thought of like, to me, Bruce Willis and Sylvester Stallone, they always
Always
play
play
the
the
same
same.
role. They could be in 40 different movies, but they're always Bruce Willis and Sylvester Stallone. Don't you think an architect or a designer has to evolve and change and adapt to their clients?
I can't tell you how many people interview me and automatically say, "What is your style?"
Address
I say,
that.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
one. I don't have one. My style is dependent on what the project is and what the client wants and where the site is.
Right.
All the things that Cheryl was saying. It's the whole picture.
So the best interior designer, it's fair to say, they may have certain things and elements that they incorporate in their work, but they
Right.
shouldn't have one style, because then how can they work for everybody?
Right.
Right. Well, and not to criticize, because some people don't want to. Some people, you can flip through Architectural Digest or Interiors, you know who did that
did
job
what.
just
And
by
clients want
looking.
that too. I mean,
And so some clients say, "That's what I
something
like. That's what I want. I want that lamp. I want that. I want that.
Yeah.
And I want that look."
And do you give it to them, or do you say, no, that's not the look you need today?
You incorporate.
Incorporate.
I think you incorporate. I think you really have to personalize every space.
Jeff,
Yeah.
what's trendy right now? What's hot? And when I came to Aspen 20 years ago, talking about Aspen, it was the faux chateau with the big beams, and every house had the elk chandeliers, and they were all the moose head, And then now it's going much more contemporary. And talk about that evolution.
I agree. I mean, this beefy timber, loggy home style, which I was never partial to.
The faux chateau.
The faux chateau.
It didn't have good classical style.
Yeah, it didn't have good style, proportion, like
Right.
you were saying,
Proportion is
Cheryl.
And they were heavy, and
They
it
were
looked like
heavy, and it was
And
they
the
looked like
sites.
they were nice for their day, but they looked like corporate retreats.
I don't
Right.
They're
even know if
huge.
they were nice
Correct.
for their day.
And we're seeing more modern and contemporary things all of our practices. But people also want to be comfortable. You don't want to make something that's too modern that some people are scared to sit down on a chair or be comfortable on a chaise lounge, for example. So I think
Your house shouldn't be a museum, right?
right, it shouldn't be a museum. It should live how the family lives or the person lives and the couple or whoever. But you know,
It's funny because we hired an interior designer out of New York. We saw her work in an Architectural Digest, and every architect we loved. That's what we like. So we met her by serendipity at another person's house here in Aspen. We said, we love your work, but we don't think we could afford you. And we became friends with her. And she said, oh, I'll work with you, you know. She said, we'll use the main rooms. But the point of the story is she has 2 couches that are the most spectacular couches you've ever seen. They cost more than my first house. Seriously, it's not a joke, okay? But they are like the least comfortable couches. So if you sit in them, they're stainless steel with chenille, and they're like amazing. But so one of the realtors was up in our house, a friend of ours, and he sat in them, and he said, oh, these are comfortable. And I said, well, a Ferrari's not comfortable either. Talk about the fact that your house ultimately should be lived in.
And what I'm seeing, you see a lot of. I look at the real estate when I come in because I'm in town and then I'm back in New York and everything now looks so modern and sterile that it could be anywhere in the world. Which is a common style, and I think that you have to have. I like working with antiques. I like working with a variety of periods of furniture. I still do it in a very modern, contemporary way in that it's very not cluttered. It's very simplistic.
Right.
And
Minimalist.
Minimalist, but there's a lot of history and there's a lot of texture and there's a lot of personality and culture in these pieces. And so I'm not really for the very clean, minimal look that you're seeing now. Because I think Aspen should reflect Aspen. And you should have a little fun when you come here. It should be a little bit of a stage set that I'm in the mountains, I'm in Aspen, I'm not at home, I'm here. But
a lot of people are moving here, Cheryl, from New York and Miami and Malibu, and they want to bring something of that life to Aspen. You see it, right, Linny?
I do.
Yeah.
And you can blend all of that.
You can. Talk about either one of you. Talk about putting an eclectic piece in the middle of a contemporary. Sometimes contemporary you can mix in an antique and it looks good, right?
Yeah, I think you do it by the way you design the room, the layout, and the minimalistic. You could have this amazing, I don't know, Baroque piece in the front hall, but it stands alone in it.
And again, it's the scale, and it's the scale of the piece
and the color
to the room.
And the color. Oh, talk about color, Jeff. I want to talk about like now. I'll tell you, some people like me. I'm a beige person. Okay, I'm petrified of color.
Oh yeah, your house is beige.
Right, it's like a beige house, and I'm a beige person, and because I'm petrified of color. But talk about how you get a beige person like me and talk them down from 30,000 feet to the field and put some color in.
I mean, it depends on the client. Obviously, our personal house, my wife and I, is very monochromatic in color schemes. We have a very simple color scheme. Color can help. It can enlarge spaces. It can also condense spaces. And I think it's where and how you use the materials and the color that achieves what your goal is. So I'm not afraid of color, and neither are these ladies. I've seen their work. I mean, you really,
I love it.
You know, color can also create excitement and moods, and
color can be used monochromatically.
Monochromatically.
But what do you do with people that are afraid of color like me? Do you get them to a psychiatrist, or what do you?
You have to show them.
It's
you have
like
to
anything
show them.
red would be like, that's got to be a mistake, but it's not though, right?
No.
It's
you
not
put
a
color
mistake.
in your homes.
I
I've
do.
seen it.
I
Yeah.
do. And sometimes what you can do is do it sparingly. You know, bring it in, but doing sparingly. So one home that's here up by Maroon Creek, where the people really wanted a pretty neutral shell, we did a core wall that anchors the dining room to the living room in a beautiful Venetian plaster that is the most gorgeous cinnamon color. And that's the thing that everybody
But
comments on.
how did you get that idea? Like, I wouldn't have gotten that idea. Did you just wake up in the middle of the night and say, cinnamon Venetian plaster?
Yeah. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it just comes to me, you know, how are you going to help these people? I mean, it's interesting if you can show them, not necessarily their job, but if you can even show them other jobs, the effect that color has and how it can be used, where it's not a killer. It doesn't ruin space, it enhances space.
So let's do this. Let's talk about some of your work a little bit, show some photos. Cheryl, this show actually had its inception with Cheryl. We were out to dinner, and she started telling me a story about how we started emailing back and forth pictures of monasteries. And am I making this up?
No.
Monasteries in France. And
He
this,
likes real estate, so we
I love
found out
real
that we
estate.
love to
And
kick
let's just, can you
tires.
bring camera one on this picture? And Cheryl, explain what this picture is and give us a little history.
Okay, this was taken about a year ago, and this is my house in Bronxville, New York. And I built it. All of this is limestone, and all the stone surrounds around the windows, and even the door come from a convent in France. That I was there looking for salvage when I wanted to build this house, when I was designing it. And so I went to a salvage yard, bought the tile, bought the stone Dalle de Bourgogne floors, bought beams, and I still needed a front door. And so my salvage guy said, well, there's a demolition man who keeps calling me who says he has a good door. So he got a hold of him, and we drove like over hill and dale for 2 hours, and we got to
In the French
the
countryside.
French countryside, and he drives like a maniac. And we got to this little chapel and a 1950s building that was being demolished, like a multi-purpose room building. And I said, well, I don't want a chapel door, and that is a piece of crap, and there's no door there. So we just drove all this way, and well, we ended up walking around the building that was coming down, and there, we didn't know at the time, was an 18th century convent. That
Is
was
this the
also-
convent?
That's the convent.
Okay, come up on camera one. This is a picture of a convent, which everybody needs to bring back to the United States. From where in France was this?
This is in Bourg-en-Bresse.
Oh, I can't even pronounce it. Well, if you ever need a convent, I guarantee you Cheryl can find you one. So actually you disassembled this.
Yeah, so when I got there, the doors were already on the floor, and there was this door, and then you walked through, and there was another door, which is exactly how I designed my house. So I had the floor plans, and I said, oh my God, that's how I designed my house. So I was measuring the doors and all the stone surrounds and the stone thresholds. I said, I'll buy that, we'll refurbish the doors. And then I found a door going down to a la cave, down to the basement, and I said, can we clean this up? I'll buy this too. And then I said, you know, I was going to build a stucco house, and I needed stone coins, and I knew I could go to Indiana and have them cut
Sure.
stone coins for me. And then I looked at the coins on the side of this building, and I said, oh my God, they're beautiful. I'll buy those too. And then I
This
said,
is the kind of client you
Yeah,
want.
exactly. No kidding. No kidding.
and then
Is this a great story?
I want her to hire me.
Yeah, me too.
Because I guarantee you could give Linny an unlimited budget and she'll exceed it.
I
So
did
happy.
on a budget. I did this. I was there doing it myself. I wasn't in a showroom in New York buying stone.
Right, you were
I
there.
was there in the grass.
Right.
And so then, and they were tearing things down, and glass was flying. And so then I said, well, I'll also buy the stone surrounds around the door, around the windows. And I didn't have any idea how I was going to physically put them on the house, but I thought I'll figure it out when I get home.
Yep.
Right.
And then my guy says to me, he goes, Cheryl, why don't you buy all the limestone off the building?
Good idea.
I go,
Perfect.
yeah. I'll buy all the stone.
Good idea.
I go, I
What
don't
was
think-
Peter saying
I-
through this process?
He didn't know anything.
Okay, thank
Okay.
God.
Good.
So then he says, buy all the stone off the building, and I said, I really have to sleep on that, because I really don't know how I would do this. And he goes, I think it's really crazy. He goes, it's not so crazy, because it's really cheap, and we just bag it up, and we'll ship it to you.
Great.
And it turned out that the shipping is more than the stone.
The stone itself.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
It's always the shipping.
But I took these stones to, well, I shouldn't tell you the rest of the story, but so I slept on it that night, and I woke up the next morning, because I knew I couldn't call home. I couldn't call my husband and say, what do you think, I'm buying a convent?
Surprise!
So,
As long as it didn't have any predictive
Surprise.
value for his sex life.
don't go there. So anyway, I ended up going to a hotel that night, and they served me my dinner. It was a salmon, and in this salmon was this like cookie that had been deep fried that was in the shape of a cross. And I looked at that and I said, who puts a cross in somebody's meal? I've never seen that before. This must be a sign that I have to buy the convent.
Limestone and all.
And so I bought all of it.
It's a beautiful story. Well, now we all want to come and see the finished product.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is
Truly.
which is the new one is going to be in Greenwich, right?
Yeah, I just bought another property in Greenwich, 8 acres. So
Fabulous.
And then it was because of your inspiration. Because he loves looking at real estate.
I do love
online.
looking at real
So
estate.
he was sending me all these, what do you think of this house? What do you think of this house?
We were
And
finding
he goes-
chateaus, monasteries.
And I go, I like that one, so I'm using one of the monasteries that we saw as my inspiration piece for this 8-acre property.
That's so funny. Well, we definitely want to have you back someday when with pictures of the finished product.
Yeah.
Jeff, one of the things we talked before the ladies arrived today was that that an interior designer, which was confirmed by both Lenny and Cheryl, should be versatile enough not to just have one style. And I know you've done from super contemporary, like the belly up, for instance. Okay,
Yeah.
Jeff did the belly up, and it's great. And you've done it to, and then I printed some things off your website. We've got a photo here of like a log cabin-y kind of place, which when I think of Halferty, I think of like super contemporary, and yet you have the range, as we'd say in a musician's, to be able to do something like that. Talk about it.
Thank you. That's Lenny. That's up at Chaparral Ranch. That's a guest house. It was a 1919 restoration of a potato farmer's house, and we basically took some really cool interiors and used some really beautiful French limestone and Carrara marble and gorgeous millwork, and we restored the actual logs and added lighting and all the new things. So
But
you
you
work
kept
with
the
client.
original house, right?
Yes.
Okay, I want to put two things side by side because these were both done. This will blow you away. By Jeff Halferty, okay? And you could not think of, this is like the difference between a blonde and a brunette right here. I mean, this is as different as it gets, Jeff. Talk about the staircase.
The staircase, that was a same client, different house. A beautiful, again, color, and we were talking about color before. There's literally a million different color variations. This is when the LED technology was first coming about. And so we used a gorgeous, wonderful steel craftsman here locally and a glass purveyor here locally. And we eliminated the treads, was what you're seeing from the side. And the client wanted an open expression and loved glass. And this was before glass treads were popular. And it's just great.
Came out amazing.
We call it the Fred Astaire stairs.
So when people hire you, you don't have any preconceived notion of what kind of house they're going to have. It's just,
I think it's important, like Cheryl and Lenny said, you have to interview and go back and forth to your client. You can't just say, this is what I'm going to do.
this is
for
what
you.
I do. There are some designers, and the three of you know that have
For
sort
sure.
of one style,
That's right.
right? But you guys aren't one of them. Lenny,
I think a lot of them are famous for one style, but they probably, if they're really good, they can flex.
Correct.
They
Right,
all can
exactly,
flex.
exactly.
I don't think you can pigeonhole, but
So Lenny, how do most of your clients find you? Is it by referral?
All of it.
Oh,
And do they know that you are probably, and I'm not saying this in a pejorative way, it's very complimentary, probably on the higher end of the price point. They know that, but
Yes.
they want your expertise.
Yes.
Okay, and so you don't, when they ask how much a job's going to cost, the three of you should answer this. Are you embarrassed how much this stuff costs, or you're confident in it? No, that's what it costs.
No, I mean, I'm not inflexible. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have to always ask what they intend to spend. They have to have an idea too of what
Right.
they're willing to invest.
But how do people
and
know?
Then they know.
they
Oh,
know a
they
budget,
know.
what
They
they want to
know.
if
spend.
you look
What
at
they're-
the house is
right.
the biggest investment they're going to make,
Right.
right?
Correct.
Right.
Second is the
Right.
interiors, and
Right.
it could be close.
Right.
A piece of artwork
Could cost
more
as
than
the
the
house.
Right.
And frequently it does in the
Right.
houses that
That we
three
do.
of you design.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And you know, you have to listen to what they say about what they want to spend, what they want, and you know whether or not that's doable. You have to be able to tell them. You can't get that.
You can't get that. You won't get the look you want.
You won't get it.
And so, but the old traditional thing of the carpets matching the rug, and that's gone, right? We don't have to do that.
No, no.
The painting, does the art? Yeah, you see, for me, like the art
Good
should
art
fit
will
in.
not match your sofa.
Right.
Sorry.
You agree with that, right, Jeff?
We don't put a Monet in a garage, is the expression we use at the office.
But
right?
do people ever ask you to help them pick art? Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah.
All the time.
yes.
All the time.
Right.
And you go with them to the galleries?
Yeah, I've been an art freak for my whole life. I mean, I've been. I mean, someone asked me how long it took me to design this house that I just built, and I said my whole life. Because and you must be the same way. You're a student. I mean, when I was 15, I was going into the Art Institute in Chicago on Monday nights to listen to the lectures.
Love it.
And it's just been part of your life, and you look, and you're always observing. You travel. I'm sure you guys travel a lot, and you record. You take it all in.
Yeah, well, that's the famous quote from Picasso where he was sitting at a sidewalk cafe in Paris and someone recognized him in the 30s and came up and said, "Would you doodle something for me on my napkin?" And he did, and the guy said, "How much is it?" And he signed it, and he said 5,000 francs, a phenomenal amount of money at the time. And he said, "It only took you, like 2 minutes." He said, "No," he said, "it took me my entire life." And the guy paid him.
It's probably worth $1 million.
Exactly. There you go. Okay, what do you got for us, Lenny? Show us some stuff.
Here's some.
Is this Pat Cooper's house? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There's
I hope Pat
Pat's
Cooper, I
house.
hope you're watching. Tell us what you got here.
So this area is the family area, and then looking through the fireplace on into the formal living room. And the whole fireplace treatment, which is a compilation of a mica and bronze, stone, limestone, and hardwood flooring, all in the same area.
Talk about the fact,
And-
Lenny, that the devil is in the details.
This house, this was a 5-year project, and we had some delays along the way because of structural steel.
No way, delays?
Which really worked to my advantage.
But you kept
because-
your equanimity through the whole job
Yes,
because Pat
yes.
still loves you, so you never got
No.
rattled.
Oh, I know. Oh, we had a wonderful time doing this house. And she was just a fabulous client because she wanted to be involved in every detail. She got a whole education, and it was great. This
What do
is
we have
another
here?
house right down the street here. And this was a contemporary house that was a spec house that sold in 1 week for the highest price ever paid per square foot in Aspen.
Really? You know, that's an
And-
interesting thing because a lot of spec builders will try to go on the cheap.
Yeah.
It
Talk
doesn't
about the
work.
difference, Jeff, between a spec
Yeah,
job and
sophisticated.
a custom job, and then how the spec builders try to save money, but then when people walk in, they say it looks like Drek.
Correct. I think that's a great point, and Lenny has a great point.
Yeah.
I also did a spec for a client, and we didn't cheap out on finishes and furnishings and details because he knew when someone touched a doorknob or touched a wall and felt the Venetian texture that they would recognize, and that was another high-priced seller in the West End. So, I mean, for even spec or an end user, they want substance, they want quality, they want well-built, they want beautiful spaces. And
Buyers can see quality, right? I
yeah,
mean,
for sure. It's
If
just-
someone comes
They
to
can
hire
now.
Sometimes
They
they
can.
can't articulate it.
Right, but they
don't
know it.
why, but they get it. They see
Well,
it.
and we have a much more educated market now
Yeah.
That's
than,
true.
than
20 years
ever
ago.
ever
That's true.
before. And people are interested in the process. They want to know.
Yeah.
They want the education. They like it.
you. Has the internet changed your business in any way? What? No.
Not
It's
me.
personal, it's personal, it's personal. But is there a website where people can go on, like www.designmyhouseonthecheap.com or something? Could be a business opportunity, you know.
Right.
You email in your pictures.
I won't be
and
on that site.
Me either.
None of the three of you will, but it's an interesting
No,
concept.
and there's been some pop-up sites like House, right?
Right.
House.com
Oh, yeah,
and
right.
Pinterest, which is kind of like a Facebook, and people
Right.
can pin and put images. And sometimes I'll even do it for a client. If a client can't visualize, I'll create a Pinterest site or a page for them and put the images. And so if you're communicating with a client who's in Chicago or LA, like I do a lot, you're able to convey, hey, this is what I think we should do for your fireplace, this is what I think we should do, you know, and it's a reference, and or even if it's my own sketch, I'll scan and put on there, you know, so the internet personally helps me, because also for consultants, you know, you have your floor plans and you send them off to your engineers and your lighting designer, if you have another interior designer.
The information.
Right. In
It's
terms
great.
of that, I just
then you
thought
can
that
work
what you
anywhere.
meant
For
was
shopping,
whether
yeah.
or not
For
Yeah, no,
it influenced me.
Because again, they still have to. When you're on the internet, you can't pick the quality. You can't.
correct, touch,
look,
smell
can't
it,
see
you
it.
can't
Right.
feel it.
I can't buy
Right.
anything until I see it.
Me
Like I have
Me
to
too.
see
Right.
it, and
Right.
so.
It's hard to pick stuff just from the internet, especially furniture, because if you don't sit on it,
right.
you get one
like your sofa. It's
that
like
looks
your
like a
sofa.
Ferrari,
And
but you wouldn't want to live in it.
We go back
That's
to
right.
scale and having
Right.
Yeah.
knowing where to put that in
Right.
the home
Right.
and the right piece, because
Yeah.
this could look like a huge urn and it could come you know, I mean
It's
you,
big, right.
you can go by measurements, but it doesn't help. You've got to see it to get that.
Should someone, in your opinion, you, all three of you, understand the value that creative quality interior design should create? If someone's selling their home, should they stage the house, have someone come and knows what they're doing? Because sometimes people, when they walk in, I'm going to use the phrase, buy the furniture, you know, they like the look so much they forgot
Right.
what the windows looked like.
Right. In my opinion, I think staging is a good thing because the way you live, you tend to live either with a lot of clutter, a lot of mess, and people come into your home and they can't see it.
Correct. And I've been
They
in,
can't see it.
right, and I've been in circumstances like Lenny's saying, where it's just an empty
Right.
shell that has nothing but
Right.
a kitchen island and some bathrooms, and people can't visualize.
They can't.
And
Most of us
it's-
can't.
It's
They
really
want to see the
difficult.
finished product
Right.
down to the, you know, the little knife rack on the
Right.
counter.
Right.
Have you, with your clients, most of them have been custom jobs, right? I mean, where someone,
yeah.
all. And what is, I wanted to ask the three of you, what are the mistakes that we make as clients that interior designers are all saying, oh God, I wish people would know not to do that? Is there anything that you can think of that clients do that just drive you nuts? Should we come with pictures when we come in?
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Sure.
offend you,
Yeah.
even if
Sure.
it's somebody else's
Absolutely.
work, but that's
No,
sort of what I
that's
like.
a really good
Right.
thing to
Really
and,
good.
and it's always
Earmark, right.
always go to the client's house and interview them.
Right.
Correct.
I agree.
You learn something
you
when you
have
go
to
to their
see their
house.
Their
space.
environment to
Right.
understand what they're talking about. You cannot
Right.
talk design. You have to see it. It's a visual
Right.
thing.
I agree.
And
Right.
you can like have a phone conversation and then be completely off.
Right.
Right, have a
So-
phone conversation and you're
Right.
picturing them in like a purple, and then you
Right.
get there, it's stark
Complete-
white.
They
Right.
have no idea how to talk
Right.
the
And
design
it's
language.
right.
Right.
And it's always better if they say, you know, they call you or they want to meet, you know, and interview you and they want to come to your office. I do the same. I always want to go to their home. I don't want them to come to my office on the first meeting. I want to go where they are.
And see what
And
they've
see
been
how they
living
live,
in and the
or
last-
how they
What
live.
don't like.
Right. If
Yeah,
they're
what's
comfortable,
bothering them.
kids,
Yeah.
dogs, cats,
Horses.
horses. What do
Right.
they What do they have? What are we encompassing in terms of our requirements?
Lenny, I always
all of
find that making decisions is stressful, okay?
It
Because you
is.
don't want to make a mistake. So
Right.
if you show me 3 faucets and say this faucet
Right.
and this one, it's like makes me nervous. So I, you know what?
I'm
You've
so
seen this.
sorry.
Right?
Yeah.
You've seen this before,
Yes,
though, because you
yes,
want to make the right
right,
decision.
right,
But
right.
the analogy I'd use is, in some things in life, there isn't one decision. There are
Right.
3 different
Correct.
faucets.
That's right.
Because they're,
Everything can be, if a client insists, you can take that and give them that
Right.
faucet. But I think it's our job to have an overall vision and a theme for the room.
Right.
I don't want to make it sound
Yeah.
theatrical, but you have a design vision.
Right.
And so you can look at 3 faucets and say, that'll work.
Right.
And you just know it, right?
Right.
Well,
It's
and you
really
give
easy.
them, of the 3 choices,
Right.
you know that any of those 3 choices
Would
will
work.
work. So if they say, you know, I can't make a decision,
You
And
tell
say,
them which
may I
one.
I'll make
Yeah,
it for you.
Yeah.
As long as, you know, any of these will work, I'll make it for
The
you.
expression, Jerry loves all these expressions. You know, you give them a shotgun and a bouquet of flowers. So you don't give them a faucet from the 1800s and then a Philippe Starck design piece that just came out last week. You narrow it down a little bit, and then they let them choose.
Maybe different
Right.
price points and finishes.
Correct.
Right.
Right. How many
Right.
times does the price determine the choice in your experience?
With most of our custom clients, price a lot of times is not an issue. They're conscious of the whole entire entity, but they want it to be cohesive.
They
like
want it to
Cheryl's
look
saying,
right.
They want it to
They
be
don't want
right.
that Frank
Right.
Lloyd wrong look.
Right.
Correct.
Have you ever had a client, any of you, who came in with like one piece and said, design my whole house around this thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about that story.
Yes. Okay, so one of my clients is Billy and Janice Crystal in LA. They've been my client for over 25 years. And everybody knows that Billy loves baseball. And when they tore down the stadium, he came with the 3 bronzes from the stadium for his home office. Said, I want to do my office around Babe Ruth.
Gary.
And this. So
That
I
is
had
terrific.
to design his office around the 3 bronzes, and they are in the wall in his home.
That's impressive. How did it come out? Was he happy with it?
Very happy. It looks great. It looks great. He has so much great memorabilia from baseball anyway that it's wonderful.
Can you generalize about dealing with famous people or movie stars? I know you deal with a lot of them.
I do.
Is it generally easier or more difficult, or they're just like everybody else?
They're just like everybody else. They don't want to make mistakes either. And again, I mean, it's the only problem is if they do want to be involved in all the decisions is working their schedules. That is the hardest part.
And you tell
because
people
they go
that
to
you
work,
want them to be available.
Well, they go to work
right?
at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and they come home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night,
Or they're away
for long periods of time, and you have to just try to figure out
Because
how
if they
how
happen to
you're
be in
gonna get their
Machu
attention.
Picchu when you have to pick the carpet,
Right,
it's
right.
not going to work. And
Right.
frequently you see
Right.
that, right? Because we're all,
Right.
we travel as much as we can, so it's an interesting phenomenon. Well, you guys are 3 terrific guests.
Thank you.
Okay, the movie star handsome Jeff Halferty, my 2 beautiful and brilliant designers, a French limestone girl and Lynn Hutton,
Okay.
who needs
Thank
no
you.
introduction.
Thank you.
Very generous to come on and share your expertise with our
Would
with
you
our
like my
viewers
favorite
today.
phrase? My favorite design phrase
Go ahead.
was from Truman Capote,
Could give it to us.
who said, every night I say my prayers, that people with money will get taste, and people with taste will get money.
Truman.
Well,
Capote.
I always say my mother always said good. She always said money doesn't buy taste, right? It doesn't.
And it's,
I mean,
and it
sometimes it
doesn't.
just buys
So,
bad taste.
keep your
That's
fingers
very
crossed.
funny. So if you
Say
want to reach, you can
prayers.
reach Jeff, Linny, and Bachelorette number 1, Cheryl Tague, the French limestone girl. Thank you for joining us. Great guests today. We'll say hello to them if you see them in town. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Fun.
Support for this grassroots community television program comes from U.S. Trust. From wealth structuring to investment management, U.S. Trust's global perspective, unique team approach, fiduciary platform, and more than 200 years of experience provide for the kind of insights, solutions, and expertise that have a worth all their own.
Bovino Law Firm, a boutique law firm specializing in complex litigation, real estate, leasing, and sales, corporate organization, trust, and estates. Admitted in Colorado, California, and New York. David Bovino and Summer Woodson at 970-925-4445 or www.bovinolaw.com.
Bishop Plumbing and Air Conditioning, serving Aspen and Vail for over 40 years. Shoe covers, name tags, IDs. Let Bishop worry about your heating, plumbing, and air conditioning issues so that you don't have to. Bishop Plumbing and Air Conditioning, 925-8610.